Let's talk about music. Well, that sounded bad, didn't it? How we used to listen to music, how we consumed music. Now, I was planning on doing this big fancy edited videos because I don't do edited videos. I usually just talk through it and I go. If I use visuals, I usually try to bring them up during the recording and overlay them. But I was going to try to do some big one with images and all kinds of neat stylizations. But I figured, no, I'll just talk to the camera for a minute. Because that's something I want to talk about was music. The way we consumed music in the 80s and 90s, way different than it is now. First, about the ways that we consumed it. You had the obvious, the radio. And then we had CDs, which I don't have. I should have at least brought props. I didn't even do that. We had CDs. Most of you, no matter how young you are, know what a CD is. We had cassette tapes. Cassette tapes were about that big, a little bit bigger than a playing card, and it was literally tape that had the music imprinted on it. And you pressed, put it in, press play, and you heard it. We had 8 tracks, which were giant cassettes, like that big, and they were literally a tape as well. Then we had the good old-fashioned vinyl records, which some of you've probably never listened to, may have never even seen in person, but you've seen them online. A lot of people, it's kind of cool to decorate with them now, it looks like. And then, of course, you have the other option. You sit around and listen to live music, you know. That was an option. But that was just more, not, really related to the video. But yeah, so radio, CDs, cassettes, vinyls, 8 tracks. And the way we consumed all these, well, we had big console stereo systems. Like even the poorest of people. I grew up in a trailer in the middle of the woods that literally had holes in the floor. And we still had a stereo system. Talking about speakers that were waist high if you set them on the floor. It had a cassette player, had an 8-track, had AM, FM, and it had a record player. And we listened to a lot of records when I was a child. My parents had a lot of records. In the 80s, we listened to a lot of records. That was the way you listened to music in your home. You may have had also some smaller radios that you maybe had in another room or something. For portable, we had boom boxes. These portable boom boxes, some of them you'd have to turn them sideways to get them through a door. They wouldn't fit through a door widthwise. 2 big speakers, one on each end, and they'd usually have a radio and a tape player, maybe a double cassette player if you're real fancy. And if you watch any movies in the 80s and you see guys walking around like this, they got this big box on their shoulder and you hear music, that was a boom box. And the other thing we had that was cool was what we called a Walkman. And the original one took cassette tapes. They eventually made a Discman, which that was awkward because CDs were prone to skipping. And so if you had a CD and something that was hanging on your hip, you'd see these commercial people jogging with them, but you'd have to get one of those very expensive ones to be able to jog. Otherwise, your music would just skip. Those were portable ways we consumed music. And we wanted to hear a specific song. So we didn't have the internet. I couldn't just go pull it up, or I couldn't grab my phone and pull up a song. There was, the internet didn't exist in the 80s and early 90s, or even mid 90s. We didn't have a music service to where you can just download music. It just wasn't there. So if you wanted to hear a song, you either owned it on cassette or whatever, CD, whatever time span we're looking at here. You'd wait for it to come on the radio. If it was a popular song and it was in rotation, They usually played it, if not once an hour, once every couple hours. And you could almost schedule it by, you knew when it would come on. Now, another thing we would do is we'd call the radio stations and we'd request songs. And that was a common thing. Like, we called radio stations. We want to, hey, I want to hear Sweet Child of Mine by Guns N' Roses. Or I want to hear Amarillo by Morning by George Strait. You would call the radio station and they'd be like, and a person would answer the phone back then. They'd be like, all right, I'll let them know. And you sit there and you listen for it. Now, a lot of times what we'd do, we'd want to record the songs we heard on the radio. And we didn't always have stereos with built-in recorders. That wasn't always a thing. So what we'd do is we'd get a tape recorder, which was about this big, about that thick, and we'd set it next to the speaker. And we'd sit there and wait for our song to come on, and we'd hit record. Which on those old mechanical tape recorders, you was pushing down a play and record button at the same time. And you'd hope you'd catch it right on time and hit record, and then you sit there and just wait. You got your ear up to the speaker, and as soon as it's over, hit stop. Because you don't want to pick up any other stuff because you can't get rid of it. You could, but it was very time-consuming, and you risk missing up your song. This is how we made personal, like, mixtapes. Mixtapes were the predecessor to playlist. Right now I've got a playlist here on my Spotify that I just calls, hope it doesn't start playing. Well, let's say I got this one. I call it Bon Journey. And it's basically 80s music. And I call it Bon Journey because of Bon Jovi and Journey. But it has everything. We're talking there's 2 hours of music by 16, 17 different artists on that one playlist. That's what mixtapes were to us. You'd have one tape and it would have all the songs you wanted to hear. Because a lot of times you might not, an album would come out, you might not like but one or two songs on it. And they were expensive to buy. And also, you didn't want to have to sit there and play through a whole CD or a whole tape. CDs were easier because you could skip tracks. But you didn't want to have to play through a whole tape just to hear the songs that you like. So we'd call and request them on the radio and record the songs we like. Now, we also got to a point to where you'd get two tape recorders. You'd put one and play it and have the speaker of the other one, have, the microphone of the other one next to it, and you record one on one was playing. That was another way we made mixtapes. I said we got creative, and the sound quality was not good. And it's funny because a big thing in music now that people like is lo-fi, low fidelity, and they're basically taking digital music and trying to make it sound analog. What we did with our tapes and our recording coming out of a speaker over a microphone makes lo-fi sound super clean, high definition. But we loved it, and that's what we did. Then as time moved on, we did get some, the www.internet started in 96. And with just like every invention in the history of man, once something's invented and it's out there, people find a way to use it illegally. And one of the biggest things that everybody did illegally was music. Because again, there wasn't a YouTube, there wasn't a Pandora, there wasn't a Spotify, there wasn't a iTunes. Actually there wasn't iTunes in the pretty early on, but it was expensive. We wanted free music, and that's what we did. And there was all kinds of sites, Kazaa, LimeWire, Napster, you may have heard of, where we could just download music. And it was illegal. And we didn't realize how criminal and how unfair to the artist that it was that we did it. But that's what we did. We'd illegally download music. And in the beginning, man, it would take forever. it might take 7, 8, 10 minutes to download a song. Whereas I go right now, I can download a song in 2 seconds. But that was the other way. And we'd put those went onto our computer, and we'd burn those to CDs, and we'd have a mixed CD from our computer. And let me tell you what, as a child that grew up in the 80s, in the early 90s, being able to make a mixed CD on your computer that has digital-ish quality, that was the most amazing thing. Like, it was mind-blowing. You also got to remember back then, 6 gigabytes was a huge hard drive too. But I mean, that was the ways we consumed music and how we got our music. We also missing a lot of lyrics. If you'd buy a cassette, most of the time a cassette would have the lyrics printed inside. Otherwise, you just went around missing a song. And I mentioned CDs and tapes and records. And where did we get those? We didn't have internet to order them back then. Well, there was this service called Columbia House, and they sent out a thing. They'd send you 10 albums for 1 penny, and then they'd sue you for money later. And every one of it, I don't know anybody in my age group that didn't do that. We all did that, and we never paid. We didn't know. A lot of us did it when we was like 9 years old. We didn't. We found a penny, taped it to this postcard, and sent it in. We didn't know we were signing a contract to buy a new tape every month for the next, 400 years. So we ended up with tapes like that. And but the other way was music stores, including Walmart. Now, this is going to blow your mind. If you're under 30, you probably don't. No, there's no way you remember this if you're under 30. Walmart used to have a music department. And when I say music department, we're talking this huge section full of, well, originally it was records, and then it was 8 tracks, and then it was cassettes, and then it was CDs. But a new song came out you like, you didn't have to go to a specialized music store. You can go to Walmart, and they had everything. Now, a lot of times what you'd have is, because they started enforcing like vulgarity and graphic lyrics, so you get one copy at Walmart that was different than the copy you'd get at, say, the music store. It was the radio edit. It had no cuss words bleeped out or changed. Sometimes they were completely changed, not just bleeped out. It had complete different lyrics for what you'd buy at Walmart. But it was really cool. Walmart had this entire music department. It was just full of music. And you go in, you could buy a tape or you buy a CD. It was really cool. And then there's this thing called MTV, and it used to play music with videos. But anyway, that's it. I just want to talk about music and some of the ways how it's changed. Hope some of you may have found this interesting. It's just my ramble on Winter Shiver Day. Love all y'all. God bless y'all.